Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio and welcome to Wild Positivity, and the February prompt is Solitude. So once more, as I start my journal page, I am looking at the cards from the Wild State of Being from my Positivity deck, just reminding myself of what they are. And I've pulled a few others from my deck: Sanctuary, Self-Care, Calm, and Stillness, because these particular cards were calling to me today and I wanted them to influence where I would go with this page that's all about solitude. So in terms of wild positivity, I think, having thought about it for the last couple of weeks, solitude to me means two things. One, it's kind of a place or places that I might be, and two, it's a kind of quietness and stillness in my mind, in my surroundings, and just giving me that space to think. And this just felt so important for thinking about wild positivity. So it's not a complicated page that I do today, but I was working quite slowly, so I have actually put it on double speed. And I just started by gluing down some pieces of paper, mainly music sheets and I think pages from an old French dictionary. There's a couple of other pieces there as well. So I'm bringing you this video a week later than I intended to. As I say, life happens and I've had quite a busy time of it, not doing art things, but I think last weekend when I had really intended to do this page, I just wasn't in that kind of right place for doing this page, and I'm glad I waited, because I think it would have turned out quite different and I'm not sure my heart would have been in it. So for that reason it was better to wait, and I think that's why that card, Self-Care, why I was drawn to that so much this week, because I'm needing to practice some self-care, I know that, and you know, that was a reason, I guess, for not actually getting round to doing my page, one of the reasons anyway. But I felt better for getting this page done today, and I feel better for now getting on and editing the videos. So, as I say, not a complicated page. I didn't quite know where it was going to go. I had a sense it might be quite a calm page, just because that's what I kind of feel that I'm needing just now. So this is just a small scrap of patterned paper. I'm just going to try and take the kind of, it's in almost two layers, can sometimes peel a layer off with these, and it just means that my page won't end up quite so bulky. And just using some matte medium to glue all of these pieces down. So if you're going to be doing this along with me, you know, I would invite you to think about what solitude means for you in terms of wild positivity. As I said, for me it's those two things. One, it's about a place or places where I can find solitude, and two, is just about sometimes needing that solitude even in places that perhaps are not so quiet. So I dry that off and I decide that I'm just going to put a little bit of stamping on at this stage. So just using a script stamp and that other wooden block stamp. I know that a lot of this will be covered up, but it was almost my way of getting myself back into creating this page. Not putting a lot of ink on it there, just really getting something on that blank page, and something that might be seen through as additional layers go on. So I decided just to add a little bit of watercolour, and I think one was, I don't know, I think it was maybe raw umber and burnt umber. Just the two of those. I don't want it on too thick. I didn't want to make the page too wet. So just using a small brush and just a little bit of water, and every so often I'll put some water on the brush and just spread it a little bit further. But all I wanted to do was just to take the whiteness off that page. Now the page was pre-gessoed. I'd gessoed all the pages when I put this little journal together. So it's a small brush. It takes me a while to put the paint down, but you know, it's fine. The matte medium is acting in places as a little bit of a resist, so the watercolour doesn't quite grip it all, but that's okay. I think by this point I realised that I wanted a kind of slightly grungy, slightly aged effect. I wanted a page that felt calm. And I guess that's because for me solitude means calm. Now solitude, again in my opinion, is very different to loneliness. Solitude in a sense is a choice. You know, we don't choose to be lonely, but we can choose to have or to find solitude. So given that a good dry, and I then want to kind of blend it all in a bit, but also just knock it back a bit, and I just add some gesso with a brayer. And I do like the effect that this is creating because I'm almost getting a textured look, almost that dendritic type effect. And you know, I like the way that that's starting to look. I always like the kind of effect this creates because it reminds me a bit of old buildings, especially old kind of religious type buildings, monasteries and the likes, that you see especially in Europe, where the kind of external plaster is falling off, but you still see bits of the kind of fresco that's on the wall. And here I decide I just need a bit more of that gesso, just the white gesso, again just knocking that back, trying to make it look one piece rather than just simply pieces of collage stuck down. So I give that a good dry, and then I take these two gelatos. One is chocolate and the other is butterscotch, and I start by using the chocolate and just going around the edge. I want to create a kind of border, and to begin with I just use my finger just to try and blend it in, but I'll jump forward a little bit in a moment and you'll see that what I then do is I had an old wet wipe and I just put some water on that and used that to blend the gelato in, and I got much more of the type of effect that I wanted. Again, just creating that kind of aged effect, and the texture in the gesso kind of caught the gelato, so to see it close up, it's a really nice effect. Just darkening it in a couple of places. I decide that I want to add a bit of the other colour, but I'm just putting it onto the wet wipe and just blending it very gently. I don't want this too bright. And just dabbing it and rubbing it in here and there. Just pulling it into the middle to get coverage over most of the page, but not at all. And you'll see there that it was getting into the kind of cracks. I decide then that I want to create, I guess, what looks kind of like a sun. So just using my finger to blend that out. Now, one, I want to knock it back a little bit, but two, I want to make that more permanent. So I'm adding some white gesso to it, just to make sure that the gelato doesn't move afterwards. And also, as I say, just to kind of tone it down a bit. Decided I want it a little bit bigger, so I do start to extend it out the way. I didn't want a kind of firm line around it. I'm now going to take a butterfly stamp, and by this point I'm thinking that a single butterfly will represent solitude for me. Just testing it there, and I'm just using a sepia ink. Now, of course, the page is slightly bumpy because of having collage on it, but I'm not too concerned if it doesn't stamp well. But applying a decent amount of pressure, and as it turns out, it was a pretty good stamp. Giving that a dry just to set it. So now just taking these letter stamps, and I'm just going to stamp Solitude. So I've got it in place, but what I'll do to begin with is make sure that I have got all the right letters and that I've got them all round the right way. I also want to make sure that I'm applying the right amount of ink. Again, I don't mind if it ends up with a slightly distressed look, but I don't want to have to stamp it a second time. I'm just thinking about where I want it. So if you're in the Positivity Facebook group, just to say thank you to those of you that are continuing to show your positivity cards, and also thank you to those of you that did the January prompt of adventure for wild positivity. Again, making sure that that's set. And I'm looking back at adventure, and I decide that I want to make this more like the orbs that were in that first page. So all I'm doing is using my finger, putting it through a piece of punchinella, and just trying to keep it roughly in the shape of the circle. You see my head bobbing in and out there. It's just because I was trying to make sure that I didn't go too far. Decide then just to add a few little more bits of the punchinella and the sepia ink, just to take away the plainness of the page. Then take a sepia marker, and I just want to go round the sun, just in a very sketchy manner. I didn't want this looking too much like a kind of perfect circle. I wanted it, not that it was a perfect circle, but I wanted to kind of just knock the shape from it a little bit. Just give it more of that sketchy type look. And with that, I was calling my page done. So as I say, quite a straightforward page, but I think this was a page I needed to create for wild positivity and for the prompt of solitude. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.